Okay, one sample proportion test. We are not using a particular data file. We do have summarized data I'll share with you in a moment. In a one sample proportion, what we're looking to do is test a proportion or percentage against a target value. And so in the instance we're looking at in this exercise or case study is that we have a training company who trained several hundred people a month, and all of last year throughout their surveys they have calculated that their satisfaction rating is 94.2%. And so now this year, in the new year, in the first 6 months, they have 824 satisfied survey responses out of 892 surveys. So the question is the first 6 months of this year's performance the same as last year's performance? We will use the one sample proportion test to determine that. So we'll go to Stat, Basic Stat, 1 Proportion, and we are going to use summarized data because we don't have a data sheet, and the number of events. Events are going to be the thing that occurs or a satisfied response, and so events is 824, and the number of trials will be our number of surveys, 892, and we are going to perform the test against a hypothesized proportion of 0.942, 94.2%. And now we will hit OK and determine whether or not the first 6 months of this year is the same as last year. So for starters, we'll start with the null hypothesis. We said the null hypothesis is that the proportion is equal to 94.2%. The alternative is that it's not equal to 94.2%. And with our p-value, we can see that it is less than 0.05. And when the p is low, the null must go. So we look at the null hypothesis. The p is less than 0.05. It is low. The null we will reject. So we reject the null hypothesis that it's the same as last year and conclude that it is not the same as last year. Another data point here to look at is our 95% confidence interval for the proportion, and the 0.904 comma 0.9403. This is the range. It's a 95% confidence interval, and it is the low and high end of the range of 95% of your data falls between here and here. And when your hypothesized value does not land somewhere in that frame, in that range, then you are going to be rejecting the null hypothesis. So if your value does land inside this range, then you will fail to reject the null. In this case, you don't see 0.942 in here. It's just after this upper end of the 95% confidence interval. So we're going to reject the null hypothesis and conclude that the first 6 months of this year's satisfaction ratings are not the same as last year. And given that we know what the proportion is now, 0.923 or 92.3%, it is in fact less than last year. So as the owner of that training company, my next question is, what's changed? What is different? Let's take a deeper look at the satisfaction surveys. Are we talking about one course, all courses, and all kinds of different variables you can start to look at to determine what has changed to make it not the same as last year. So that is one sample proportion. Thanks for watching.